have the greatest job in the world, and that's working with dogs.
Best in Show winner is the French Bulldog.
Winston won the National Dog Show. It was amazing. It was exciting. And to have a dog to be #1 dog in this country, you have to have great nutrition. And I always fed Pro Plan. Just like us, when we eat well, we feel good. And I just love that food and what it's done all these years to all the dogs I've bred and all the dogs I've shown.
Welcome to Pure Dog Talk. I am your host, Laura Reeves. And you guys, I tell you what, I was just saying, I have so many people that I want to talk to in purebred dogs. And their time and my time and lifetime, it is a challenge. But today's guest is one that I have really wanted to bring to you guys to share her almost philosophical approach to purebred dogs. And I love it. So Nancy Talbott is joining us. She is today an AKC judge. She is a breeder under Bell Gold. Yes? Kennel
Correct.
name?
Yep. That's correct.
Golden Retrievers, Labrador Retrievers. She is a wealth of knowledge and just has a real gift for how she explains things to folks. So I really want you guys to take a minute and hang on this one, because I think we got some stuff to talk about. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So talk to us a little bit. Give us the 411. I know a little bit of it, but I think it's always better to come from the guest. So
okay. So hi everybody. I am honored, to be in the company of who Laura has had on these podcasts in the past. Seriously. I told her that yesterday, like, wow, among giants. So, my official start with purebred dogs was actually in 1976. That is when I was finally living in a place. I was a senior in college. I was finally living someplace where I could have a dog. And I think people may have heard this story before, but I'll say it again. I fell in love with golden retrievers when I was 4 years old, because the people down the street had 2 of them. And one of them, the boy, the son of the other, would regularly jump the fence and run around the neighborhood, because it was a neighborhood back in the 60s, early 60s, that was packed with kids, and we all ran amok because it was safe to do that. And so that dog was part of our life. I could not own a purebred dog because my parents loved little mixed breed dogs, and so that was great. But then when I was in college, I got a golden retriever. And that kind of started things off. But backing up just a little bit to say, well, how did that get you into dogs? By the time I was 12, I was so into dogs that my mother would take me from Riverside, California, where I was born. She would take me to the Orange Empire Showgrounds, so Orange Showgrounds in San Bernardino, drop me off at age like 12, 13, 14, at the beginning of the day, leave me there by myself. And I would do the dog show all day, and then use a payphone, if you remember what those are.
Oh, yes.
And I would call her when it was time to go home. So it was another time and another place. But I watched conformation. I watched obedience. I fell in love with the sport way before I could ever have a dog. And so the first one was in 76, and that got me started.
And so that's about the same time, a little bit earlier, my folks got we got our first purebred dogs late 70s, early 80s. So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit. I know you've bred Goldens and Labs. Yes. So talk us through kind of some of your fun dogs that you've had, that you've enjoyed, nice success, so that people kind of can place you that aren't familiar with the breed.
Sure. My first golden retriever, born in 1976, was a disaster. I got her out of the penny saver. You all have your version of a penny saver, little flyer that you pick up at grocery stores. And she had papers, which back in those days meant a blue slip. And the blue slip, the breeder, I say that term loosely, handed her to me with the blue slip and said, you could show her or breed her or both. I mean, there was no controls whatsoever. And I took Heather through obedience. It turned out that she was dysplastic, had terrible skin, and randomly attacked other dogs at will. I mean, she was everything a golden retriever should never be.
No.
Surprisingly enough, I got another one. Um, but I had fallen in love with a dog, and I want to mention this dog because historically, I think that this particular dog really turned the way that people look at a golden retriever.
Mm.
His name was Champion, Obedience Trial Champion, Sunstreak of Cullenwood, UDT WCX, and this was long before there was a hunt test program.
Right.
I watched him one day, owner handled, win high end trial and sporting group in the same day.
Wow.
And he was a phenomenal dog from Northern California, owned by Susie Bluford, who is now an obedience and agility judge. And I decided that I looked at my Heather and said, "You don't look anything like that dog." And so I got a CDX on her. And then I waited for my next puppy, which was going to be a streaker puppy. And that puppy was bred by Liddell Beckwith of Beckwith Kennels in Washington. He was born in 1979, became a champion UD WCX himself, and got me started in this wonderful sport. The Labradors were about 10 years later. And this just a real quick story about how I fell into Labradors. I, I had a I was living in the Antelope Valley where I live now, which is about an hour northeast of Los Angeles. For those of you who don't know, high desert. We're at 2,500 feet. It's the Mojave Desert. I was going to the show in Santa Barbara. This would have been in about 1990, and a friend of mine called me early in the morning and said, "I have the flu. I can't go. Would you take this black open bitch for me?" And I thought, how hard could that be? There's no grooming. It's a Labrador. You stand up and show them. And I thought, okay. So I picked her up, took her with me to Santa Barbara. She went winner's bitch and best of winners for a major. My golden got zip. So it was a very worthwhile trip to pick up the Labrador. When I went to drop her off, my friend said, I have a lot of dogs. I don't have a lot of emotional connection with her. Do you want her? Well, okay. So I put her back in the car, took her home, finished her in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And that was
And back in
how,
those days, labs had serious 100 dog entries every weekend.
yes, huge. And, a 5-point major back in that time was something like 90 bitches. I mean,
Yeah.
it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, she finished quickly, sound as can be. Turned out she was the daughter of a very famous import Labrador his name was Receiver of Cranspire, and he was behind many of our top winning dogs today. So I literally fell into Labradors with an outstanding bitch. And that launched 10 years later, at 10 years after Golden's, it launched me into Labradors.
Amazing.
So,
And
yeah.
I love, and I've talked to Tanya Struble, and I've talked to all the people. I love talking about the dual purpose work with Goldens, with Labradors. We hear so much about, show dogs and field dogs, and they're never the same dog, and you can't have a pretty dog that'll hunt. And I grew up in such a way that was horse pucky. And
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
it just was. And so talk me through that. Talk me through your understanding of it in your breeds today, ways that you are watching people continue to do work with their show dogs and show their working dogs, right?
Okay, you just opened the door to my current passion. Really, it's perfect. So backing up again to that start for me, the dog to me became the ideal was Streaker, Sunstreak of Cullenwood. I was so fortunate to get a son of his who was equally as talented, but didn't have the talented trainer. So I didn't get an Och. I'm not an Och kind of a trainer, but that started me off. And for golden retriever people and maybe other people who would know, I lived in Illinois for 8 years. that was 8 winters enough for me, and I moved back to California. But during those 8 years in Illinois, my first field experience was at a Golden Retriever Club of Illinois fun field day, which was run by Jackie Mertens of Top Rest Golden Retrievers.
Mhm.
I didn't know who she was. I didn't know that her dogs were famous,
Mhm.
but she introduced me to the idea that, of course, my dog could do field work. It
Right.
didn't matter what his breeding was, of course, he could. I didn't really embrace or understand the significant division between show and field until I started showing more in conformation.
Mhm.
And then it started to really strike me, and increasingly and continuing to strike me, at just how extreme, not just conformation and conformation breeders, but also field and field breeders have become. Golden retriever, the word extreme should never be in the vocabulary about a golden retriever in any way, physically, mentally, energy level, any of that. As we know, if you specialize in a high level sport, there is a tendency to go to extremes.
Mhm.
Modern day field trials,
Mhm.
not hunting tests, but
Mhm.
modern day field trials are so extreme in what's required of the dog. I admire the trainers and handlers, truly. I could never do it. But it almost creates this idea that you have to breed for, in the field world, it's called go.
Mhm.
Okay, that would be extreme drive.
Mhm.
And I have heard field breeders who say, I can do anything else as long as I have a lot of go. And so they're breeding for more go.
Mhm.
Trainability, yes, but more go.
Yeah.
On the conformation side, as we see when we're in the ring, um, when Goldens became a really impressive group dog,
Mhm.
therefore it has become primarily a handler breed. There are still tremendous owner handlers, and I applaud every owner handler out there. It's a tough breed to show and
Mhm.
compete with. Um, And that has led us to extremes of movement where you have dogs in a flying trot, not a moderate ground covering gait. The extremes of coat, the extremes of bone and weight, because that's what people think is necessary to compete in that venue. Now, when we started the hunt test program, which now goes back to the early 90s,
Mhm.
93, 94, something like that.
For retriever hunt test, I actually think it was before that. My dad was a hunt test judge for retriever test.
Okay. So early 90s, probably. I know that Shader, it started when Shader was about 14 years old. He lived to be 16 and a half, by the
Mhm.
way, which
Mhm.
the longevity of Goldens could be a whole different podcast. But he was about 14. I ran him in one junior hunter test. And so that would have been 93.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just too much
Mhm.
for him
Yeah,
at
Ted.
his age. But yes, so when Hunt Test started, it gave a different venue. It gave a venue for those people who wanted a dog who met the standard physically and mentally,
Mhm.
but still wanted to prove their dog's birdiness, trainability, interest in water, all of those innate skills that we have to breed for. You can train in a lot of things, but you can't train in some of those innate talents. And I think that's, go ahead.
No, I think, it's really interesting to me. Like I said, my dad bred some field trial labs. I spent my
Mhm.
childhood from like 9 years old in a skanky lab coat throwing maggoty ducks into scummy cow
Lots of
ponds.
good birds. Yes. Yeah.
I didn't stay in retriever trials just in case anybody was wondering. Ew.
Yeah.
But so I spent a lot of time with that and the labs that we had then, and I still, I know what it takes to that
Yes.
these guys were doing, but
Hmm.
the hunt test for pointing breeds, for retrievers, for spaniels really
Hmm.
gave all of those breeds, because again, my mom had Clumber Spaniels. The first Clumber Spaniel with
Hmm.
any kind of field title in 50 years was our dog,
Wow.
and he got a
Wow.
W. He got a
Yes.
WD from
Huh.
American Spaniel Club had that before the Spaniel Hunt Test program. And my father worked with Plaus and Ruth
Yep.
Tabacca to help create that Spaniel Hunt
Yeah.
Test. So
Fabulous.
I've watched this come along, and I love exactly what you're saying.
Hmm.
That exists as a way to encourage people to
Hmm.
have the best of all worlds, right?
Right. Right. And it brings us back to what our standard says over and over again: medium,
Primarily
moderate.
a hunting dog.
Right? It is primarily a thank you. Thank you. My favorite line. Actually, my favorite line from the Golden Standard is the last sentence in that paragraph that says, um, um, the overall appearance, balance, gait, and purpose is more important than any component part. Sorry, I blanked on the start of that
Okay.
sentence for a minute. But that overall appearance, balance, gait, and purpose is a hunting retriever.
Mhm.
That is the overall purpose and balance of this breed. And so when you have extremes, that does not fit the golden standard. And here's what I am so encouraged about, and I have applauded those who at our national specialty enter both conformation and field. The GRCA gives a triathlon award for
Mm,
those dogs who compete successfully in the field, compete successfully to at least qualify in obedience rally,
mhm.
and also a placement in conformation.
Right.
And the triathlon has become wonderfully a big deal.
Love
The
it.
other thing that has grown so much, and I'm so proud, is our gun dog sweepstakes.
Yeah.
So the Golden Club has a gun dog sweepstakes. It's on the same day as our regular and veteran sweepstakes. It's a long, busy day at the National. But gun dog sweepstakes started out with something like 25 or 30 dogs in the very first one,
Mhm.
about 10 years ago,
I was
probably
going to
maybe
say,
15.
right?
Their entry this year in Massachusetts, which is happening in 2 weeks, is 92
Wow.
in gun
And
dog
what's your
sweepstakes.
requirements? What's your requirements for a dog to be entered in the gun dog sweepstakes?
Right, a JH or higher field title.
They
So
actually have to have the title, no legs.
they
That's it.
did.
They
Oh
gotta
no,
have it.
they have to have the title before entries
Love,
close.
love
And
it.
the WC does not count. Our
Mhm,
WC and WCX is a separate
mhm,
program. Um, so the gun dog sweepstakes at this point, things may change, but right now it is for junior, senior, master hunters.
mhm.
We also have a class for two-star dogs, which are dogs who have run successfully in a field trial and gotten uh, a qualifying score, and then the three-star dogs, which are dogs who have successfully run a field trial, not hunt test,
Right.
and placed,
Yes.
right? And those dogs, we have several of those entered this year, the
Nice.
two-star and three-star level dogs.
Nice.
And what is really, not only is 92 a tremendous entry in our gun dog sweepstakes,
Mhm.
but our senior hunter males, we have 11 senior hunter males entered in gun dog sweeps. Junior hunter, of course, is 24 dogs, I think 20 bitches. It's going to be the biggest one.
And
But
you don't
senior,
require these to have confirmation titles. These are just
nope,
dogs with hunt test titles.
correct.
Nice.
And it does not require, but here's what you're going to start seeing if you were to show up at the Golden National. In gun dog sweepstakes, even in the senior and master hunter classes, are grand champions.
Wow.
So we have, I'm so proud of us as a breed
Mm,
that the GRCA has encouraged, and
mm,
we have encouraged each other to get those dogs out doing what they were bred to do. And there are more trainers across the country
mm,
now who are involved with Goldens
mhm.
who are pushing the dual dog, and
Nice.
specifically with programs saying, yes, bring your confirmation bred dog. We will work with that dog. We will take the dog where it is. We will move it forward.
Mhm,
WC, junior hunter, senior hunter,
mhm,
master hunter.
mhm.
Friends of mine who do this regularly have senior hunter dogs come to them to work on master in labs and Goldens. And
Nice.
so it's just a thrill for me to see that our breed my original breed, because labs are my breed also, but Goldens have put so much emphasis on the dual dog that we are coming as a breed full circle back to when dogs like Streaker, born in the early 70s,
Mhm.
were the norm, not the exception.
I
And
love that so
love it.
much.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting because people from the Labrador Retriever Club board, the national club,
Mm-hmm.
have have asked about it, and I have sent them the requirements for gun dog sweepstakes. So I am hoping that the LRC at their national will now start to consider a gun dog sweepstakes, because there are many dual purpose Labradors as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, that is a passion of mine. And if I could do nothing else really right now, it would be to continue to build the concept of that primarily a hunting dog whose overall appearance, balance, gait, and purpose are the most important thing. And as you know, everybody can be a headhunter, or they really, they're just going to look for fronts or proportion. Yes, those are all important, but overall, this is a hunting dog. So,
I love that.
Trupanion is revolutionizing medical insurance for pets by providing the best possible experience to our members. And it's not some space-age dream. It's happening now. We pay your veterinarian directly while you're checking out, and we're the only ones who can, which means you have decisions in seconds, and you don't have to wait for reimbursement. So unlike with other providers, you'll keep more money in your pocket. Ask your veterinarian if Trupanion can pay them directly, because there's pet insurance, and then there's Trupanion.
I love to hear these stories about what you're doing. We started 2002. I think we had the very first All-Star Invitational for wire-haired pointers.
oh,
So instead of having a top 20, my club has dual champions, champion amateur field champions, champion master hunters, and champion NOVDA UT dogs. So the highest field
nice.
titles available,
Yep.
with a show championship. And that's what competes for our most coveted prize.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
it is so amazing. And I know it's hard, and I know people like work themselves to death to do these things. And
Hmm.
I've done it. I've watched people do it. I've bred the dogs that did it. The Vizsla Club took it from us and has started it in their club. It
Mm.
is so, I think, important, sharing your opinion, that these dogs not just have the structure to do the
Hmm.
job, but actually do the
Hmm.
job, because that's the mind part, right?
Yes,
The structure part's
absolutely.
got to be there, but the mind part and the heart and the gut,
Yes,
all of those
yes,
things go together to make a dog that is really its breed.
yes, absolutely. There is something in a story that Plaus has told,
Mhm.
and I do seminars every year just privately. They're not GRCA ones, but for my friends who are trainers and have a kennel, and their clients come, and we have a great time. Plaus, a year and a half ago, came with me, and she told a story about a gentleman who had a field Brittany, and the dog was an FC AFC, I think, perhaps. And he took it to a show. People talked him into it. And I know there are many Brittany's that are dual champions, and there are many breeds that Chessies and other breeds that still have tremendous dual purpose dogs. He took his Brittany. He probably showed up in a cowboy hat and the boots, whatever. And after going over his dog, and he moved his dog, the judge said, um, I'm I'm going to withhold first place. I'm going to give you second because your dog has some issues that would really affect his ability to do his job. And it is such a great story because how did that dog do his job and become an FCAFC? Heart.
Heart. I do this presentation. I do this. This is a presentation I give and have given multiple times, including to the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association's annual
Ah,
meeting. So, I'm like that. Just because a dog will kill itself because it
right.
has so much drive doesn't mean it should have to.
Thank you.
That
Yes.
we should
Yes.
be breeding dogs that are physically and mentally and emotionally
Yes.
capable of doing the job so that one doesn't overrun the other. And I think in
Correct.
the sporting breeds, particularly, I know kind of less of an issue, I think, in a lot of the hound breeds, but it's seriously a problem in the sporting breeds because if you've got too
Hmm.
much drive and not enough structure, that dog will kill itself. It will
Yes.
do the job, but it will
Yes.
break down and it will be in pain and it will be miserable. And if
Yes.
you could have the best of both worlds, which you can, I
You
promise,
can. Yeah.
um, why would you not?
I know. And just this is another along the same lines of what you're talking about. You and Klaus should just give a seminar together. Just saying. But
You understand, I love Klaus to the ends of the earth
of
and
course,
back, and I
yes,
have known her since I was like 12. So I'm
yes,
saying,
exactly. Right. And so another quote that she had, and I'll probably butcher it, but I use this when I talk to people, but they say, "But my dog loves it so much, he does it anyway." Her quote is this: your dog should not have to overcome a physical trait,
Mhm.
a negative physical trait, in order to do its job.
Yeah.
Yes, it can do its job, but it shouldn't have to overcome a negative physical trait to do that. The number of cruciate tears in field Labradors is a
It's
great example of that, right?
yeah.
So,
I just think that it's Klaus and I, like I said, come from the same mind,
yeah,
and it is there is no reason for a dog to have to do that.
no.
Okay, so let's kind of change subjects a little bit.
Okay.
I would love for you to speak as a judge. You
Mhm.
judge the whole sporting group, yes?
Yeah. Yes,
So I thought
yes.
s- so many times I think um, people lose track of some of that original purpose and the correct movement that is breed specific, that is part of breed type.
Yes,
That a Spinoni does not move like a wire-haired pointer, does not move like a Labrador, does not move like a Brocco.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
I, talk me through because I know you and I share this thought process. So I would
Yeah.
love it. I would love it if you would share with the listeners how you think about what you're seeing in the ring as a judge,
Mm. In just my breeds or as in the whole group?
as you're judging.
Okay. Um, you know, the great dogs of the 70s, there were great dogs in the 70s, there's great dogs now, right? There were terrible dogs in the 70s, there are terrible dogs now. What I have seen more is this growth of the great mediocre.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And so when I am judging, if I get a great one, it's a thrill. And you know that
Yeah.
thrill, that feeling that you
Thank you,
go, oh,
Jesus.
thank you. Yes, yes. And especially if some of your lower classes have been mediocre,
Mhm,
and then a great one walks in.
mhm,
And it might be a class dog that you take all the way to the breed because it's that good.
mhm,
Um, that is a thrill. The ones who are just really poor, you want to say, please just let this be a companion dog. This would be a great companion dog. When I judged the Golden Retriever National Best of Breed in 2017, the sad thing was that my first cut out of 200 dogs literally was dogs that should never have finished. And that is a concern to me. There are many, many mediocre, many more mediocre than I think there ever were.
mm,
So in my own breeds, I see that. I see that in other breeds.
mm.
But the great ones are still the great ones, and they just fill your soul. Um, I think when you look at purpose, the ones that I consider the great ones are the ones that I can imagine. Not only are they beautiful to the eye, that they satisfy the artist's need, right? If you have an artist's eye,
Mhm.
it will fill that eye. On top of that, they move with the most effortless movement. No, they don't all move like a Bronco. A Bronco has the most thrilling movement I've ever seen when they're outside in a big ring. I don't like judging them indoors in a small ring because
Got it.
it loses
Well,
the whole. But to watch a Bronco move
mm,
and then to see a video of why they move that way. And in Italy, when they're covering this ground and they have to do it at that pace, it gives you goosebumps. When I watch another Italian breed, a Legato, move, it does not move like a Bronco. It better not move like a
no,
Bronco,
God,
right?
no.
Its angles are completely different than a Bronco. Its body shape, its depth of body, all those things are different for a reason. A Legato should not move like a Bronco or like a Spinoni, even though they're all three from Italy. I don't care. They were bred for a different purpose.
Different purpose in different regions of Italy.
Yes, yes. And so those are very specific. When I come back to the retrievers, so all of the retrievers have essentially the same purpose, which is to pick up down dead and wounded game from hunters.
Mhm,
That's the purpose.
mhm,
Some of them were bred primarily as upland dogs.
mhm,
Some of them were bred primarily as water dogs.
mhm,
Some of them were bred as tollers. I mean,
mhm,
that's a little different. They
mhm,
still have to pick up game, but it's a different function.
mhm.
A toller doesn't move like a golden. It shouldn't, right? Its job, tolling up and down the banks, is a springy, lighter gait to attract the ducks. It
And the
is not
Kohler
a
and the Quaker are quite similar. Not the same, but have a very
similar
similar. Mhm,
function, right? Similar function. A toller that moves like a golden is wrong.
mhm,
And a golden that moves like a Chessie is wrong.
mhm.
A curly that moves like a flat coat is wrong.
Right.
They each need to move as their breed's purpose, even though they all retrieve birds. And this is what I hear from a lot of people. Yeah, but they're all retrievers. No, no, no. Yes, yes, yes. But a toller has a different job. A golden was bred primarily on the estate where they were developed. They were bred primarily as an upland dog, but they also needed to pick up birds that fell in the water.
Mhm,
So, yes, they have to swim. They don't get a pass on swimming because they were primarily an upland dog. A Labrador was bred primarily as a water dog,
mhm,
and it also has to pick up birds on land.
mhm,
So, the difference between the chest and the depth of body and the shape of the rib on a Labrador and a Golden dictates how they move as well.
yes.
And when I see a Labrador move out like a Golden, I question, and my hands usually tell me too narrow, not enough rib spring, maybe not enough depth. If I watch a Golden move like a Labrador, not
Plotting.
necessarily converging,
Mm,
that is a problem as well. So I think that generic breeding, generic handling, and generic judging
yes.
are so bad for all of our breeds. The spaniels have the same.
I'm sorry. I just
the,
that needed a moment of just like clarity.
okay,
Generic is bad.
generic is bad. Yes, moving faster is not the right answer. I cannot tell you, and I'm sure that you do it in breeds as well. If I could say how many times I told golden handlers, slow down,
Slow down.
do it again, go around again, slow down, loose lead, loose lead, loose lead. Our standard says loose lead.
Mm,
It's right there in writing.
mhm.
And it is a mystery that there are very few people who consistently show a golden on a loose lead. It is beautiful when a golden is allowed to drop its head and then consequently its tail, because the tail is counterbalancing the head. So if the dog's moving with his head up in the air, the tail is going to counterbalance as well. When you see a dog move on a loose lead with head and tail, it just takes my breath away. I know it's my breed, but I don't care if it's Irish setters. I recently judged Irish setters um, earlier this summer and gave the breed to the most exquisite bitch. Owner handler, I think, I don't know the people from this part of the country with the Irish, because she moved her on a loose lead. Her head and tail
I don't think I have
were,
ever actually witnessed that. Just
oh
in
my gosh. It was stunning. Head and tail just at about, I don't know, just slightly above the top line, and feet, I know, feet barely off the ground. She reached, her back moved, her back kept the right silhouette, slight slope, but her feet were not lifting. They were reaching. Stunning, absolutely stunning. When I see a dog in any breed moving appropriately for a working gun dog, which is what the sporting group is about,
Mhm.
um, it literally just makes me almost sing. And
Oh,
I am,
I do sing. I actually hum.
yes, hummed. Oh, it's beautiful. Um, just a quick story on that part. See, you get me going on these
No, this
things, and
is
I
good.
won't.
That's why I had you come. I'm like, come on, Nancy, we got
Okay.
to do this. This is gonna be good.
I was when I was still permit. I was judging at it, being observed as we are, and it was the first time I'd had a conversation with this particular rep. And by the way, I love those conversations with reps. I have never had a hard time with them. I have felt a little intimidated a couple of times, but it's all worked out. But in this particular instance, um, I put a dog up for the breed who was from the veteran class. And I thought he just screamed. It was a Welsh Springers. Okay, just screamed Welsh Springers. One of the top dogs in the breed was in there, and when I first watched him move, my mind kind of said, looks kind of like a short Irish red and white. Okay, when I look at any breed in the ring and it reminds me of something
Yes,
else,
yes.
that's a
If it
problem.
hits you, I
And
say if it hits your eye, if it hits my eye, if the Welshie hits my eye like a bad Springer or a bad red and white, we have a
right,
problem.
that's a problem. So, and that dog did move beautifully. I give him that. So in the post observation discussion, that came up, and it was fairly a fairly serious tone that was taken with me about why in the world I would not put up the better moving dog. So I paused, which to me, the pause is one of the most important things that we do in life, much less in the dog world. If I could get everyone to just pause, we wouldn't have some of the drama we have. So I paused and I said, well, in my opinion, today, the dog I gave breed from the veteran class was the most appropriate dog moving for its breed. And I got a funny look from the rep, but we went on. Everything worked out okay. Um, and after, at the end of it, the rep said to me, thank you. I really never thought of it that way before. But when you said for its breed, I realized, of course, that that is what it has to be. Because do you want a Welsh moving like a Sussex? You do not. Do you and that, going back to the field spaniel is sort of the origin
Mhm.
breed for so many of the spaniels, those
Yep.
flushing spaniels. I don't, you look at a field spaniel and you can see a little bit of a lot of those other breeds, and I want to call them all like Adam and Eve because they're sort of the origin
The
the
the nice
origin spaniel.
the nice thing to me about field spaniels is that sort of origin story. Because
Yeah,
if it hits your eye like a Sussex, it's wrong. If it hits your
correct,
eye like a Clumber, it's wrong. If it hits
exactly,
your eye like a Springer or a Welsh, it's wrong.
right.
And that's in silhouette, it's in head shape, it's in carriage as they go.
And temperament, its way of looking at you, all of those.
Mhm.
So when I look at those spaniels and how over time we have taken the basic field spaniel type of spaniel, generic
Mhm.
spaniel that people
Mhm.
with, and then diversified it
Mhm.
into a Sussex and Clumber that go through,
Mhm.
right? And through heavy brush, which is
Mhm.
why they're massive and big, to the Springer, the English Springer Spaniel, which springs, right? And so that, every hunter and hunters developed things,
Mhm.
dogs, to meet their particular needs.
Yes.
When people were developing Chesapeake Bay retrievers on the bay, they needed to break ice, have a coat that was going to stand up to that water in the bay in the winter, summer, and guard the boat because
Yes.
these were
It's the
market
guard
hunters.
the boat part that I think is such a distinction for the Chessies.
Yes,
I mean, the
yes,
coat, but that the temperament difference in a
yes,
Chessie,
yeah,
whole nother
strong,
dog.
right. And a golden, as I think everybody kind of, a golden is the world's dog. They're the worst watchdogs in the world. They watch. They
They
don't.
got
They don't
people
stop
stuff
anything.
out the door.
Yeah, they help them, can we carry that for you? It's different because they were bred to do something different. They had to get along with a lot of other dogs of a lot of other breeds, loose, running around the fields with a bunch of rich people who barely knew how to shoot, but they wanted to go on a hunt. And so Goldens have to get along with everyone, and it matters what that origin and purpose is. I love studying history of breeds. That I love that.
So we talk on the podcast. So listeners, Nancy admitted to me when she came on today that she's never actually listened to the podcast, but hopes to in the future.
I'm
So we
terrible,
say
but
it's
I'm
okay.
going to change. It
No,
is.
not bad. So I say on the podcast all the time, and I say it in my presentations, purebred dogs are living history.
I
That
love that.
pedigree represents a specific period in time, a specific geography, and a specific people.
Yes.
And that pedigree traces 100, 200, 500, 1,000, however many years to
Right.
where we are today. It is literally living history.
I
And
love
as
that.
breeders, we are the curator of the purebred.
Mm, mm.
So take with me to the end of our conversation now. It's kind of like our final foot change, our final
Okay.
lead
See,
change here.
that one?
Uh,
Yes.
we're going off the left lead onto the right lead, is what I'm
I
saying.
get it. I got it. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Um, Talk to me from the curator of purebred dogs perspective. Speak to me from a breeder's perspective. What
Mm,
is it that you're looking for that helps you find the dog that's going to succeed in your litter, make a
mm,
litter that's going to succeed? What's your secret to your success there? All of
mhm,
those things in the concept of how do you help someone develop that
mhm,
artistic eye for the dog that you mentioned
mm.
a bit earlier.
Wow. So multiple
Hmm.
things to address there. Number one is as a breeder. The other is as a mentor.
Mm,
So I kind of look at both of those. As you know, as many people know, we are in a real desert of mentors in the breed. And many of us I started with mentors like Susie Bluford and Lodell Beckwith,
hmm.
right? These were my mentors. And then when I started doing field work, Jackie Mertens, for heaven's sake. I mean, we had these mentors. We are having a hard time getting the same mentors. Not saying they're not out there, but it's a little bit sketchy. And so I think that's one thing is building a core of mentors who really are going to keep people focused, not on ribbons. So the main thing, how I end all of my seminars, love the breed more than your own breeding program. Love the breed. And when I say your own breeding program, it means don't worry so much about how many rosettes you have hanging on the wall. Put the breed first. That is how we lose a breed. One of the things that I like to convince people about is to get rid of the concept of the one generation breeding.
No.
Okay, and I think so many people start in this. I did.
Mhm,
I thought, oh, I'm going to breed a litter, my first litter,
mhm,
and out of that litter, it's going to be all champions, and they're going to, we have this pie in the sky, but it is at least a 3 generation plan, if not more. And I refer people to Pat Trotter's book all the time. It like look how long she has been developing a consistent line of Norwegian elk hounds. It didn't happen in 1 generation. It didn't happen overnight.
no, it did.
Um, And it's true for, I think, all of the greats of breeding. And so the first thing I try to help new people is look at the long game and then set your goals, your smaller goals, toward the long game,
Yeah.
because that's what's going to preserve the breed. I teach the history of golden retrievers and Labradors when I do the Labrador seminars a lot. It matters that they were developed in northern Scotland, which is on a latitude the same with Norway and Sweden.
Yeah.
It matters. I teach judges that when you are looking at a golden retriever's coat, it was not developed in Spain. It was not developed in southern Italy. It was in northern Scotland. And think in terms of Scandinavia. That thick protective undercoat is crucial for what he wanted. So there's that. How do I look at it with my own breeding program? I don't breed anymore. I'm just on the road too much, and living alone when you're on the road all the time, you can't. It's not really something I can do. I have a new puppy who's 4.5 months old. He is my full circle puppy because he's a shot in the dark a little bit. His mother is all field bred. She's a master hunter, WCX. She is a red rocket. There's no doubt about it. She passed master again when her puppies were 6 weeks old. I mean, bam, she is that. As my friend who bred the litter says, the retrieve is its own reward. You have a dog where the retrieve is its own reward. That's great. She was bred to a show champion who is a champion JH. And I got this wonderful blend of all the innate talent. He may be a little too much for me, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
Keeps you young, honey. It keeps you young.
I have had champions. And when people say to me, well, will he finish? And I say, I don't really care. He meets the standard. He's a moderate dog with a correct coat, and he has innate skills of primarily a hunt dog. And so, by example, I'm trying to lead that. And then it's part of the way I teach. What is the reason for this breed? If you have an Irish setter, what's the reason? If the dog is moving with a hackney motion and going no place, how well will that hold up running over the ground in Ireland? Think about the origin of the breed. Ireland is not Scotland, is not Spain, is not Italy. And I think that those things really matter.
They 100% matter. And I was just talking to Honey Glendenning this weekend. We ran into each other, trying to get her to come on the podcast. I want to do a 4-7 discussion.
Oh, be
She's
fabulous.
Perfect for it. But it's a perfect example, right? Think about the English setter, the Irish setter, the Gordon setter, and the red and white.
Right.
They are built and painted, right, for their terrain. English setters hunted over more open ground. You needed a white dog you could see. The Irish setters needed the leg to get through what they were doing, and the setters in the hummocks and all of the things in Scotland needed to be substantial.
Absolutely.
And I just think it is so important that people understand, whether they're breeders, whether they're judges, whatever it is, that if we are to respect the history that we're holding in our hands, we must give that consideration to what people wanted to create at the time.
Absolutely. Right. What Lord Tweedmouth wanted to develop in the Golden Retriever was very specific for his estate in northern Scotland, as opposed to what the Chesapeake Bay people wanted on the Chesapeake Bay. So I love that. And just to take your metaphor a little further, every dog show then, is it not a living museum?
Yes.
And so every judge is also a curator.
Yes.
Because we are seeing these exhibits at our living museum in front of us, and we have to really use that eye that we are paid to do to pick the best exhibit, not the fanciest one or the one that has the most notoriety.
Magazine covers.
Right, right. So, but I love that metaphor of
Yeah.
every breed is a living history, and that's fabulous.
That's my stump speech. So Nancy, I
Great.
tell you what, I so much appreciate your time, your knowledge. I need to have you come back and we need to talk more.
We barely touched on Labradors. That could be a whole nother
We
podcast.
didn't even get to Labradors. I'm just saying we're
Yeah.
we're at a full hour and 2 episodes, and this is I one of my favorite conversations, in a pantheon of favorite conversations on the podcast. I spoke to her name's gonna go right out of my mind, Sue Hubner,
Oh, yeah.
of Cordmaker Pooley in Australia.
Right.
And I was
Yes.
on the phone with her for an hour and a half, and I just wanted to like crawl through the phone line, like, can you
Yes.
please take me
Yes.
home and adopt me? And that to me is some of our best conversations that we have on the podcast. And I am so happy that you were willing to join us and have one of those kind of conversations.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun. Conversations can go on for a long time.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Right.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.